Hey there, Virgo. I am doing a reading for you. These are timeless readings for really whoever finds it, but I am titling it a Virgo reading, thinking of it from that perspective. So thanks for joining me. Let's see what's going on.
Uh, you've been feeling it in the way they look at you, haven't you? In the way they lean in and then pull back. In the moments of deep connection, followed by inexplicable distance. There's something real between you, something that both of you can sense, something that hums in the space when you're together and lingers when you're apart. But you're also feeling their fear. You're noticing the hesitation, the overthinking, the way they seem to be at war with themselves over something that could be so simple if they just let it. What you're experiencing isn't rejection, it's not disinterest. It's someone who feels deeply and is terrified of what that depth might cost them. Stay with me, because what's coming through about this person's internal battle and what it means for what's unfolding between you might finally help you understand why something that feels so right keeps feeling so complicated. Let me tell you what I'm sensing in the energy right now. The first thing that's coming through is this intense frequency of conflict, not conflict between you and this person, but conflict within them. You might be experiencing a dynamic where everything feels aligned when you're together. The conversation flows, the chemistry is undeniable, the comfort level is immediate, but then afterward, there's distance, there's silence, there's this pulling away that doesn't match the intimacy you just shared. And what I'm picking up on is that this pattern isn't about you at all. It's about someone who's fighting against their own feelings because those feelings are activating every fear they've been carrying. Here's what you might be noticing: this person's energy towards you is inconsistent, but not in a manipulative way. It's inconsistent in a way that feels tortured, like they're drawn to you magnetically, but every time they get close, some internal alarm system starts screaming danger. You might be sensing their warmth and then suddenly feeling them retreat into their head, into analysis, into questioning everything that felt so natural just moments before. And that whiplash is exhausting for you to navigate. What's emerging in the energy is that this person has likely been hurt before in ways that fundamentally altered how they approach connection. They might carry wounds around vulnerability, around trusting that love won't become pain, around believing they deserve something good without it eventually being taken away. And when they look at you, when they feel what they feel with you, it's not just excitement, it's terror, because you represent the possibility of something real, and real means risk. This reflection invites you to consider what you're experiencing in your own body when you sense their fear, and whether you're absorbing it as evidence that something is wrong with you. You might be wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're coming on too strong, if you're misreading the connection, if you're investing in something that isn't actually there. But what I'm sensing is that the connection is absolutely there. This person does feel deeply for you. What they're wrestling with isn't whether those feelings are real, it's whether they can trust themselves to act on them, whether they can trust you not to hurt them, whether they can trust that something that feels this good won't eventually destroy them. The energy is showing that this person is trapped in their mind. They're analyzing every interaction, every word, every gesture, looking for proof that validates their fear. They might be creating narratives about why this won't work, finding problems that don't exist yet, imagining worst case scenarios to protect themselves from the vulnerability of hoping. And the tragic irony is that by overthinking everything, they're creating the very distance they're afraid of experiencing. What's interesting about this particular dynamic is that their fear isn't rooted in you being wrong for them, it's rooted in you being right for them. People don't overthink connections they can easily dismiss or categorize. They overthink connections that have the power to change their lives, to crack them open, to demand growth and courage and risk. And you're that kind of connection for this person. That's why they can't just relax into it. That's why every step forward feels like stepping off a cliff to them. You might be picking up on specific patterns in how their fear manifests. Maybe they're incredibly present and engaged, and then they disappear for days. Maybe they open up emotionally and then minimize what they shared later. Maybe they make plans and then create reasons to cancel. What I'm sensing is that these patterns aren't games or manipulation. They're survival mechanisms. This is someone trying to control the uncontrollable, trying to manage their fear by managing proximity to you. What's coming through is that you're being invited to make a choice about how long you're willing to wait for someone to work through their internal process. And this isn't about judgment. Fear is real. Trauma is real. The need to protect oneself from potential pain is valid. But you also have to consider what it costs you to be in a dynamic where someone's love for you is constantly at war with their fear, where progress happens in inches, where every step forward might be followed by 2 steps back. This reflection invites you to consider whether you're honoring your own needs and boundaries while making space for someone else's healing journey, or whether you're abandoning yourself to accommodate their fear. You might be someone who's naturally patient, who understands complexity, who wants to be supportive of someone working through their wounds. Those are beautiful qualities, but they become weapons against you when you use them to justify accepting less than you deserve. When you make excuses for someone's inability to show up consistently, when you convince yourself that if you're just patient enough, they'll eventually feel safe enough to choose you fully. What I'm picking up on is that this person's healing isn't your responsibility. You can be compassionate. You can be understanding. You can create space for someone to process at their own pace, but you cannot heal someone else's fear for them. You cannot love someone into feeling safe enough to love you back. That work is theirs to do, and whether they do it or not isn't a reflection of your worth or the validity of what exists between you. The energy for February is showing a potential turning point. This person might be reaching a place where their fear of losing you becomes greater than their fear of falling for you, where the distance they've been creating starts to feel more painful than the vulnerability they've been avoiding. And that shift could create movement, but it could also not. Some people choose their fear over and over again, even when love is standing right in front of them offering something real. What's important for you to understand is that someone loving you and being afraid to fall aren't mutually exclusive. Both things can be true simultaneously. This person can genuinely care about you, can feel something deep and real when they're with you, can recognize that you're special, and still not be able to move past their fear. And if that's the case, their love for you, no matter how genuine, isn't enough to build something sustainable on. This reflection invites you to consider what you actually need from someone beyond knowing they have feelings for you, and whether this person is capable of meeting those needs right now. You might be experiencing moments where you feel like you're walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger their fear, trying to be the perfect combination of available but not too eager, interested but not too invested. And what I'm sensing is that this kind of performance is exhausting, and it's also impossible, because no matter how carefully you navigate this, their fear isn't about you. It's about their own unresolved pain, their own lack of trust in themselves or in the world, their own stories about what love means and what it costs. What's coming through is that you deserve someone who's afraid and brave, someone who feels the fear and chooses you anyway, someone who recognizes their patterns and actively works to not let those patterns destroy something beautiful. This person might get there. They might do the work. They might find the courage to stop overthinking and start trusting, but they also might not. And you can't put your life on hold waiting to find out. The energy is also showing that there are parts of you that resonate with this person's fear. You might have your own wounds around vulnerability, your own hesitations about fully opening your heart, and being in a dynamic with someone who's overtly afraid might feel safer to you than being with someone who's ready and willing, because their fear gives you permission to stay guarded too. If that's true, it's worth examining. Are you drawn to this person partly because their unavailability protects you from your own fears? What I'm picking up on is that February might bring clarity one way or another. You might be experiencing more direct communication about what's actually happening here. This person might verbalize their feelings and their fears instead of just acting them out through distance and withdrawal. Or you might reach your own threshold of what you're willing to accept, and that clarity will inform your choices moving forward. What's essential is that you don't mistake someone's potential for their reality. You don't build a relationship on who someone might become if they heal, if they grow, if they work through their fear. You build on who they are right now and whether that version of them can actually meet you in the way you need to be met is less than #0. 5 is greater than consistently, openly, without making you feel like an inconvenience or a threat. You might be hoping that if you just prove yourself enough, if you're patient enough, if you create enough safety, this person will finally relax into what's possible between you. But what the energy is revealing is that their sense of safety doesn't come from you. It comes from them doing their internal work. It comes from them choosing to confront their fear instead of letting it run their life. And until they make that choice, nothing you do will be enough to make them feel secure. This reflection invites you to consider what you're willing to sacrifice of your own peace and clarity to accommodate someone else's fear, and whether that sacrifice is actually serving the connection or just prolonging inevitable pain. So, as you move through February, pay attention to actions, not just feelings. Pay attention to whether this person is actually working on themselves or just cycling through the same patterns with different justifications. Pay attention to how you feel in this dynamic, not just in the good moments, but in the waiting, in the confusion, in the times when their fear creates distance that leaves you questioning everything. Someone loving you from inside their fear isn't the same as someone loving you in a way you can actually receive. And you deserve to be loved in a way that doesn't require you to constantly reassure, to constantly accommodate, to constantly wonder if today is the day they'll finally choose you over their comfort zone. Trust what you're sensing, trust what you need, trust that if this person can't meet you where you are, it doesn't mean the connection wasn't real. It just means it wasn't ready. And you don't have to make yourself smaller or more patient to wait for someone to catch up to what you already know is possible.